Do you still think the system is working for our young people? My bad, sorry.
Yeah. I think it would be great to all the panelists to just introduce themselves as well and the work that you do.
Oh, you're pushing it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a hard one. I do know that the statistics aren't very encouraging. I was thinking about today, and actually I'm Adrian Hawkes, and we have a foster care agency, but we also have looking after unaccompanied minors. That's people from Eritrea and all those other countries that you heard about today. But one of the things that struck me is, why is it that the people from Eton always end up in the top jobs? And one of the things that it struck me is, well, because they're always being told they're great and wonderful and they will get there. There was a recent TED talk that said the chance of you being born is 1 in 400 trillion. So the fact that you're here is a miracle. And what frustrates me is that to make the system work, we need a lot more of saying, actually, you can do it, you're great, you're a fantastic person, you have the ability. And what I know about care leavers, I have seen them come through the system. I also fostered, and my very first foster child ended up as the chief editor of the largest Afro-Caribbean magazine in New York. So I look and I think, actually, these people have great resources, great resilience, and are actually wonderful people and contribute fantastically to the society in which we live. But they don't hear that enough, which is why the statistics work in the way that you just described.
Should I pass it on to Bray right now?
Did you want me to introduce
Yes.
myself? Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Priti Rana. I am the Head of Services at Mind in Haringey. I've been working in mental health for the past decade. Previous to that, I've worked in substance misuse, sexual health and education. So I've worked with young people over 25 years. Can I get you to give me the question again, Andrew?
50% of young children and adults in care or care experience end up in the prison custody. Do you still think the system is working?
Okay, I'm going to be brutally honest. In 25 years, no. I think it's great that we have a system that can protect young people, but I agree that some of the systems that have been set up haven't been helpful, and I feel that a lot of the negativity, as the gentleman described just now, is always exemplified. We don't celebrate a lot of our young people, and I also feel that we don't put a lot of care into care, if that makes sense. I think your story, Ahmed's story, some of them demonstrate that if you've got positive foster carers or positive placements, that's great. I also think we haven't got enough of the resources that we need for young people in place as well, whether it's around employment, mental health and well-being is something that I question as well within the service. There's a lot of talk amongst the social work kind of guidance and papers around treating young people as though they were your own, but I think in practice that becomes conflictual, and I think maybe the system needs a bit of a shake-up, especially after the pandemic. We've all had to change the way that we work, and I think social work is going to now probably go through transformations to make sure we can give young people exactly the same as I would give my child, for example. And last night I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, if my child had to go into care, would I feel comfortable with that? Probably not, because the system has so many cracks in it at the moment. I think we have to work together and be honest to kind of change the system.
Hi everyone, my name is Luis. I'm service manager for Enfield Living Care Team, so representing the local authority here. Maybe not too popular, but I can tell you that we are trying. To answer your question, I think that the answer is no. I mean, if there is 50% of young people that are going into the criminal system, then there is a failure. You know, I don't want to say that obviously the local authority have got all the resources to prevent that to happen, and that is the reality. We are living in a very tough world. We are living in a very competitive world. We are working in Living Care in my team, we're working with young people 16 pluses, and we have more and more young people, older young people, 16, 17, coming to us because they have been on remand, and there is some kind of involvement in the criminal justice system. Basically, it's exploitation. You know, however you want to call it, this exploitation. Every single child that is in the criminal justice system is due to a failure, you know, a dynamic failure in the system, and obviously the local authority should be there to support them all. Again, I think that everyone working in the local authority, I want to think that is coming from a very good place, and they are trying to kind of do the best. I've been working in the local authority for 20 years now. Like, I have met a lot of social workers, a lot of workers from the youth offending service, from probation, and I know that everyone at heart has got, you know, young people, you know, in mind. But the system that we are working, you know, within London, within the UK, has got a lot of positives, but also there is a lot of pressure on young people that they are leading into going through that route. So just to answer your question, is a no. I think that we should keep pushing, and it's everyone's job, isn't it, to make that happen, to create more resources, to create a difference in the work that we are working, in the way that we are working from the local authority, in order to make it more meaningful and to have a better result, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. I think just to add to what everyone has been saying, you know, I'll say it's a no, because when you look at, I work with young, you know, caregivers and children in care, and majority of the times, like, those that are supposed to support them, or the people that they're meant to see as that role model, are the ones that are not really believing in them. So there's not a lot of positive, you know, affirmation to caregivers or children in care. So obviously, when they grow up with all the things that life throws at them, society has already projected them to be failures, and the moment they make one mistake, especially like reporting a young person being missing, and that's something that's designed by the care system to say when a young person is not at home, and not knowing that this might have a repercussion in their life growing up, because it goes into the police record depending on what happened. And the more they do things, and that's start going into the system, on the police record, it's like, oh, this young person is known to the system, so they don't see them as doing anything up to good. So I don't think the system is working.
That's very sad. Why is it only 6% of young caregivers go on to further education?
I think I have a problem in some ways with the education system. There's a guy called Dr. Richard Peters who's had great influence on the education system, and he said that we need to teach people that life is pointless. If you start from that angle, and if that's permeating our education system, then you've got a problem. I don't think life is pointless. I think that actually, because we're a miracle, and because we have human responsibility and power, we should be encouraging each other to go on. And constantly, I see young people who, because of what they've been told, underestimate themselves. And I look at them and think, actually, you can do great things. But if you don't have that mental attitude that this person is an absolute miracle and can do great things, that communicates itself. And that's in a sense where the education system fails. I constantly listen to people saying, oh, that's too hard for them. And I think, no, don't tell them that. If they don't know it's too hard for them, they'll just do it. So that would be my problem with why we end up with what you're telling us.
I think for me, one of the reasons is, even when you look at from GCSE stage as well, where you have children in care that making so much transition in their life, and you still expect them to be going through these life challenges and focus on exams. You know, I've met young people that would say they've moved areas or houses or foster care like 10 times, and I was like, what? That's just crazy, you know, for a young, and you still expect them to do well in life. You know, I have a focus on education. It's not easy. Obviously, that will have a huge impact on their mental health, and that will, you know, probably be the reason why they, even when they go into college, they end up dropping out. And how do you expect them to go into university if they haven't even got the basics?
To say on that, with further education, do you think homelessness for young care leavers could be another reason why they won't go to uni?
Of course, you know, if you don't have a home, that's your priority, because you have no roof over your head. So that's one of the things that you'll be thinking of. So any other things is just come second. Your most important thing is, where am I going to sleep? If you're not sleeping, how can you even function? You know.
Going on from Ahmed, I guess it's like that Maslow hierarchy. If your basic needs aren't fed, how are you even going to think about the future, or where, like, if you haven't got anywhere to live, and if you changed 10 homes, there's no stability, there's no anything. So again, if we don't look at their well-being and their mental health, or try to resolve some of the trauma that these young people have gone through even before they've come into care, we don't look at that enough, in my opinion. I feel that if we're able to stabilise their emotions to an extent, then we can say, okay, let's look at education, let's look at where you want to go to. But if we don't do that first, it's going to be very difficult for young people to look at anything in a constructive, positive way. So again, that's why I think mental health and well-being is so important in this whole conversation. We really need to get it right for the young people, because if we don't get it right early, it's going to then translate into their adulthood and become much, much worse. So definitely think that well-being and education, everything needs a little bit of a reform at the moment.
For me, I'm thinking that university is not a goal. You know, a lot of people are thinking university like, oh, that is where should I aim. I think that the beauty of living, I'm not obviously originally from the UK, and the UK is able to offer so many opportunities in terms of education, training and employment that is going to allow you to lead a decent life without having to go to uni. And I think that what you said is right. The pressure of going to uni is a lot, and for someone that is 18, 19, 20, you know, is a big responsibility. What is important for us is to keep education, training or employment in mind of the young people, and to promote whatever opportunities tailored to the young person are there in order for them to engage with that. And then maybe later on in life, you know, I know a lot of young people that they have gone to university when they are 29, 30, 31. Doesn't matter, you can make it. It's more about, like you are saying, just believing in yourself, just get the basics, get to know what you want in life, and then go for it, because the opportunity is going to be there for you.
But see, can I talk then?
Yeah.
Yes, bursting out of me. So I'm from Glasgow, and our care system is a bit different from here. But like, I would disagree with that, because if you put the money and the funding into making sure that the well-being of that child or young person is prioritised, rather than moving them home and all that, and then being like, right, go to school. Instead of doing that, it would be more about like, how do you feel, how's your experiences affected you, how's relationships affected you, like focusing on more on like, what's a healthy relationship, instead of thinking employment, or instead of thinking about education, because you can adapt to education at any time, and you can learn different things. Education isn't just about like sitting at a textbook, it's also about learning about relationships and about life.
Yeah, totally.
And I would say that if you prioritise those things first, instead of learning from a textbook, then maybe you would get to uni at a younger age. Maybe you would get to go to uni at, you know, whatever age you want, because you would know about the things of life, like healthy relationships and stuff. And then I'm going to shut up. So.
Hi everyone, apologies for my lateness. I'll just give a really brief introduction. I'm a peer outreach worker, so I work with this amazing team. And it's important for me to be here today and sit on this panel to discuss like everything that's been discussed today in terms of mental health, well-being, further education. Like talking from a personal experience, going into further education whilst being a care leaver is very difficult, especially in the UK care system. So many barriers, so many red tapes. For instance, I didn't get my care leaver status till last year when I've turned 25. So that's obviously a massive hurdle. And I still went to university, but I was made homeless because I went to university. So that's like a massive barrier for care leavers when it comes to housing, and especially if you fall through the gaps. Do you know what I mean? You don't tick the right boxes at the right time, or someone doesn't do the paperwork, you then fall through the gaps, which can be a massive barrier. So when it comes to further education, universities and institutions need to do a little bit more better. Like if they realise that a young person has had housing issues, and fair enough if they don't have their care leaver status, try and put something in place where you can still help them progress, help them succeed within wanting to progress in whatever educational needs they want, whether that's further education, a traineeship, anything. Yeah, I completely agree with everything that's been said, and these things need to sort of be spoken about. There are positive practices that are going on, but I think way more needs to be done, and it's a systemic thing. And the stigma around care leavers needs to sort of go away as well, because we are more than just a care leaver if we're given the right opportunities.
And care leaver, being care experience doesn't stop at any age. You don't just lose your experience because you turn 26, just saying.
Fully agree with that.
So this is a very practical question for me as well. So the question is, why are care leavers not encouraged to find employment or further education, but encouraged to go on benefits? My reason for coming up with this question is because when I turned 17, going on to 18, instead of them asking me, oh, do you want to go to uni, do you want to find a job, they was like, oh, why don't you go on benefits? There's this benefit, there's that benefit. But I'm very capable to work, so I don't know why it's encouraged to go on benefits rather than find a job.
It's easier for them, that's right.
It's a bit of paper, sign paper, there you go, somebody else can do it.
I think so not a lot of people are actually capable to go to work in between the transition of being 16 to maybe 18 years old, considering the lack of like mental health support as well. And I find that even though encouraging people to go to higher education and work is cool, I would just like to know what positive practices do you actually think are being put in place? Because honestly, I feel like I have not seen any of that. And if we're starting to, maybe start from now to do these better things, what has been leading up to you deciding to do better things now? For us 25-year-olds, 24-year-olds who might not get this support that I'm hearing about now. Like, it's not so easy for everyone to get a job when your mental health, your area, people get moved out of the places they grew up from because there's not enough people. These things are taken out of our hands from the first day, and I think jobs are a good idea, but I think that obviously what things were we getting, what positive things were we receiving, because I would like to know.
Me too. there's some practices that take place in respect that grassroots charities and smaller organisations will put up opportunities for care leavers to get in places where they might never see themselves, or conversing with people that they might never think they would have a conversation with. So there are small little practices like that, but it's a systemic thing. It's not in our power. We're not central government.
And it shouldn't be to the small charities to have to pick up these leases.
Exactly. And the thing is, I feel like in this room we all feel the same aggression and we all feel the same anger towards this system that kind of is just stuck in a way. But these kind of conversations and pressure on central government and showing up like more than just a care leaver, do you know what I mean? Showing them that this is what we are, this is what we can be with the right support. But again, it's really hard. I mean, Partnership for Young Londoners, the peer outreach team, there's various different things around London. Personally, what's helped me is being very creative, like, going into spoken word or finding different avenues to raise awareness, if you know what I mean, not just like stick to reports and conversations and panel talks, just raising awareness in different ways.
I feel like sometimes even the social workers or support workers don't even have ideas of what kind of opportunities are out there because they're just so busy on that paperwork or taking those boxes. Which is sad, because if you're working with a young person, you're not just a social worker. You should be that role model, that they can see someone that you can help, you know, so they should be able to see you as someone that's there for them, to help them to, you know, better their life and move on to the next. They call corporate parents, but you know, I've had my own experiences as well. But I just wanted to come to Pretty Runner, you know, because I know you guys work with care leavers as well around mental health. Knowing the challenges, knowing the challenges that care leavers go through, how does that impact their life from your own perspective?
Well, coming from mental health, and especially from Mind's perspective, we work with a broad range of young people that are in care or not in care, but we have a higher population of racialised communities within Harringay, for example, just like Newham. And it's really simple, actually. We listen, if that makes sense. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we actually don't think about the theories that are out there or the tools and the paperwork that we have to do. In that initial moment, we're listening to the young people. We just listen. And by listening, what the beautiful thing is, we're able to do that word personal-centred everybody bangs around with. We hear what the young person's telling us, what they've been through, what they've experienced, and what it is that they want to do, or what it is that they enjoy. And just by that initial listening, through listening, and we recognise that we have to build trust. Obviously, we come from mental health and wellbeing, so we understand that there's a complexity. And something I haven't mentioned yet is adolescent development. I don't understand why we as professionals haven't understood the brain neurochemical, the biological changes that happen that we can't see on the surface. Just like mental health, we should all as professionals, if we're going to work with adolescents, we should understand that. We understand that, we know that between the ages of 14 to 18, any of these young people going through their neural changes might possibly have a breakdown. It's like the most difficult time in anybody's life. So as professionals working with young people, we have to be really careful in what we do. And I think Angel said it earlier on, really is almost as though you're working with your own child, not a child in care. Does that make sense?
That's one thing what I don't really understand. I knew what I wanted to be when I was age 4. And I was still doing it till this day. And yeah, everybody say it's hard to do it, but I ain't changing my mind. I'm sticking what I want to be.
Good.
So I'm
Because professionals, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Jane's worker, and I was listening to what you were saying about listening and really trying to engage with that young person. And we have got really strong relationships. I liked what this young lady said about it being relationship based, because it really is. And having those really tight relationships, which a lot of our health experience looked after young people have not got, that is what they've missed out on, you know. And it's about doing the best you can to support and encourage your young people to be the best that they can be. But what's really difficult from a professional point of view is when you want all these things for your young person, and I know what he's getting at, because I know exactly the apprenticeship we're trying to get him, but it's just not, some things are out of your hands. And that's why we get social workers leaving, we get PAs leaving and going to other jobs, because institutionally in the local authorities they have not got the right support and backup. And it's horrible. It's really horrible, not only for you guys, but from the workers' point of view, to think I'll get more support from this borough. You know? It's frustrating and it's hard.
We have to fight for more resources.
I think following on that, the problem is that the professionals sometimes have got too big a workload, and that enables them to see people as cases. They say in the medical profession that doctors should refer to them as that's my appendix. No, it's not an appendix, it's a person.
Yeah.
And it's seeing that person that is absolutely critically important. But when the workload is so high, that becomes a pressure.
Yeah.
That's why I think we need a change in social services.
But what would the change be though?
I thought about this last night. So I was thinking about the system last night. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in social services, I'm more come from a psychological kind of background. But something I was thinking about is that it must be difficult to be a social worker, have the legal responsibilities, and then also try to form a relationship with a young person. It's very conflictual. So just thinking about it simply, it makes sense that you have a social worker and a PA. The PA maintains that kind of mentor, friend, nurturing relationship.
Yeah, but also, it's exactly the same with the social workers.
Well, the social workers can do their legal stuff.
Yeah, but
and
social
support
workers
PA.
and PA are exactly the same.
I hope not, Jay.
But they're exactly the same, but they have their boundaries.
Yes.
Relationships the same. So the relationship, the feeling of how you feel with that person is the same. Like, you know, you have two different connections, but it's about relationship. And like you're saying, oh, but you have this person for that person, and I have 5 different people in my unit to support me, and I'm sick of it because you're not getting the help you need because you're having to go to 5 different people for 5 different things. And it's about having that one person or a sub person. It's about having that one person that you can go to and be like, oh my god, I don't know how I feel inside today, I'm feeling quite sick. She's not a GP, but she'll be able to give me her own personal advice. It's about relationships. It's seeing that person as like, oh my god, you've had trauma and you're not my child, but I'm your mom. You know what I mean?
There's 2 different types of the relationship. So you've got your first circle, which is your close, your relatives, friends, whoever maybe is who you fall on, and then you've got your outer circle, which is your doctors, dentists, and even your dog could be your closest, like yourself. Do you know what I mean? So that's what it is to do it, is the relationship factors in it. It needs to be seen, instead of being on the same level as you're saying, it needs to be seen as totally different. Having the close circle and having the outer circle, which is the professionals that will do all the, as you're saying, the paperwork, the legalities, and then you've got the people that will actually work with the person, go to McDonald's, go and do this, go and do that, go and have fun. Do you know what I mean?
Right, so we're gonna have to last take your
That's
statement.
true, but I kind of like, I get the idea of this, but I kind of disagree where I feel like a PA or social worker should have a very strict boundary of where our relationship lies. I feel like I don't really need my personal assistant person to come to me and be like, oh, do you want to go out for a meal? I want them to come with me with a list of like opportunities and a list of things and resources that I can use. Like it's cool to have a relationship, but I don't really need a substitute parent or a friend to come and like check up on me to see if I'm okay. We already have enough professionals in our lives now, and I think if we could establish like a clear relationship of what the job actually entails, and then of course have the resources to back that up, then I don't need a bestie. I need somebody who's gonna come and give me an email with a print So thank you.
We're gonna go into the second half of the panel now. I'm gonna call up Susan, who's up.